What if I told you that the doubt living in your mind isn't yours, that it wasn't born with you, that it was installed, not by truth, not by evidence, but by repetition, by years of hearing what couldn't be done, of seeing others settle, of watching powerful men shrink to fit into small cages built by fear? What if I told you that every hesitation you've carried, every quiet voice that told you to wait, to hold back, to question your own strength, was never yours to begin with? It was borrowed, programmed, repeated, but not born. Because you, my friend, you were not made to question yourself. You were made to build, you were made to rise, you were made to win. Not eventually, not someday, not when everything lines up perfectly, but now. And if you stay with me, not halfway, not half listening, but fully, if you breathe these words, speak them aloud, and return to them daily, then something will begin to shift, not in theory, not in imagination, in identity. Because what I'm about to give you is not a motivational talk. It is a reprogramming, a full recalibration of the system that has quietly allowed doubt to lead your steps for far too long. And when it's over, when the last word has been spoken, you will no longer recognize the version of yourself that accepted smallness as fate. Because doubt, as I will show you, is a habit, and habits can be broken. But belief is a decision. Belief is the act of remembering who you were before the world taught you to shrink. And today we return to that man, the one who knew he was meant for more, the one who didn't wait for proof to take the first step, the one who acted as if victory was inevitable. And let me tell you something most men never hear. That man is still inside you, waiting, watching, wondering when you'll stop listening to the old voice and start moving like a builder again. So say it with me now. I was not made to doubt, I was made to win. Say it louder. I was not made to question, I was made to decide. Say it until your voice shakes off the dust of hesitation. I do not wait for courage, I move anyway. Because today, we are not here to play with belief. We are here to make it law. And once you've made a law of the mind, the body, the voice, the results, they follow. So stay with me from this first word to the last breath. And let's begin the process of burning doubt out of your identity for good. Let me be very clear, you were not born with doubt. No man is. Doubt is not a natural instinct. It is not hardwired into your soul. It is a condition, a disease of the environment, a mental parasite that grows only when fed. And the world, my friend, is full of feeders. You were born with curiosity, with hunger, with fire. No child comes into this world second-guessing himself. Look at any young boy. He does not wonder if he can walk. He tries. He does not ask if he has permission to explore. He moves. He falls and rises, screams and reaches, not because he's certain, but because he hasn't learned to fear yet. Doubt is not natural. It is taught. It is modeled. It is repeated. And by the time you are grown, you've been told, directly or indirectly, that your power is dangerous, that your fire must be tamed, that dreaming is for others, not for you. But here is the good news. If doubt was learned, belief can be built. And that building begins with remembering the truth of who you are before the world shaped you. It begins with one small act of rebellion, rejecting the idea that you must be hesitant just because others around you were. Let me show you how this worked in the lives of the men I studied. Henry Ford, for example, was not a man born into advantage. He had no prestigious schooling, no wealthy lineage, and yet he refused to learn doubt. When the world told him his vision for an affordable automobile was madness, he responded with action. His own engineers, men with greater education, told him it was impossible to build an 8-cylinder engine in a single block. And what did he say? Produce it anyway. Not once, not twice, but every time they returned with failure, Ford said the same words, produce it anyway. That's not genius. That's not luck. That's belief. A belief so firm, so final, that it didn't flinch in the face of impossibility. Ford had trained his mind to obey his vision, not his environment. He had unlearned doubt and replaced it with decision. And that decision became law, not just for him, but for the industry he led. Or consider Thomas Edison, who failed, not once, not 10 times, but over 10,000 times in pursuit of the electric light. 10,000 failures, 10,000 moments where doubt could have taken the throne. But Edison didn't entertain doubt because he had built something stronger: identity. He didn't say, "Maybe I can." He said, "I am the man who will." And that identity became armor. Every time a test failed, he didn't internalize it. He moved forward because his belief wasn't rooted in evidence. It was rooted in repetition. He had told himself again and again that this would work, that he would work, that something would work. And so it did. Understand this: belief is not a feeling. It's not something you stumble into. It's not something that floats down from the heavens when you meditate long enough. It is built, the same way a bridge is built, the same way a habit is built, through consistent daily acts of decision and discipline. You choose belief even when you don't feel it. You repeat belief even when your old identity screams otherwise. You walk like the man who knows, even when part of you still doubts, until that part no longer has a seat at the table. That's what Andrew Carnegie understood. When I sat with him, when I studied his methods and mindset, I discovered something that changed me forever. Carnegie didn't see belief as optional. He saw it as structural, as foundation. He once told me, if a man does not command his own mind, someone else will. And that's exactly what doubt is, a sign that you've surrendered your authority. Not consciously, not deliberately, but over time, in small, subtle ways, you've let doubt set the tone. But that ends now, because now you are awake. Now you know the origin of the doubt you carry. It wasn't born with you. It was given to you, and now you are giving it back. Say this out loud: doubt is not mine. I refuse to carry it. Say it again: I do not live by hesitation. I live by decision. This is how you begin, not by feeling powerful, but by speaking power, by walking with posture that reflects certainty even before certainty has taken root. Because the subconscious does not obey logic, it obeys repetition. And every time you move like a builder, speak like a leader, act like a winner, you are building belief. The man you were meant to be, he's already in you. He's just waiting for the noise to stop. He's waiting for the command to rise. And this is that moment. Let us now speak of the most powerful moment in any man's life, the moment he makes a decision so clear, so permanent, so final, that the old self can no longer survive it. Because here is a truth too many never realize. Identity is not discovered. It is decided. You do not stumble into greatness. You declare it. You do not wait to become confident. You decide that from this moment forward, confidence will be your posture. You do not hope to one day become fearless. You decide to act even when afraid, and that very act rewrites the code of who you are. You see, every man lives within an identity. The problem is, most men live inside an identity they never chose, an identity built from accidents, from repetition, from fear, from the small opinions of small minds. And because they never consciously declared who they were, they've become a collage of contradictions, powerful in potential, paralyzed in practice. But the greats I studied, the men who carved their names into the history of achievement, they all did one thing first. They decided who they were. Not based on circumstances, not based on feelings, but based on vision. Let me take you again to Henry Ford. Before he was a titan of industry, before he revolutionized transportation, Ford made a simple decision. He would build a car for the common man. That was it. A sentence, a commitment, a line in the sand. But once that decision was made, everything changed. He no longer acted as a mechanic. He no longer thought like a worker. He became a builder of machines, of ideas, of a future only he could see. And when the world doubted him, when bankers and engineers and newspapermen mocked his aim, Ford did not bend. Why? Because his identity was decided. He had already chosen who he was. And once a man makes that choice, the world loses its power to define him. Thomas Edison did the same. Do you imagine Edison became an inventor by accident? That the light bulb was a happy fluke? No. He decided long before the world believed in him. He said, "I will illuminate the world." And then he began walking toward that vision. Every single day, when others called him a fool, when failure visited him daily, when results did not arrive for years, he moved forward anyway. Because in his mind, the result had already happened. He was simply catching up to it. Understand what I'm telling you. Results follow identity, not the other way around. If you believe that you must prove yourself before you can claim greatness, you've already lost. The men who rise are the men who decide to rise. First in silence, first in solitude, first without evidence. Even Abraham Lincoln, a man who walked through war and turmoil, was not led by public opinion. He was led by decision. He did not need everyone to agree before he acted. He had already determined the value of freedom, the weight of unity, the dignity of mankind. And because that decision was final, fear could not break him. Now it is your turn, and you must write your identity in stone. Not scribble it in sand, not whisper it with apology. Declare it. Who are you? Who have you decided to be, regardless of what you've done up to this point? Because until that decision is made, doubt will always have a voice. You must say aloud, "I am not a man of hesitation. I am a man of execution. I do not drift between identities. I have chosen one, and I walk in it." And do not say it once. Say it until your subconscious hears it so often, so clearly, that it accepts it as law. That is how belief becomes identity. That is how decision becomes destiny. Let me offer you a ritual, the same one I saw in the lives of Carnegie, Schwab, Ford, Edison. Each morning before the world speaks, you speak. You declare who you are. You speak your identity aloud, not with hope, but with authority. You write it. You repeat it. You move in alignment with it, even when you don't yet feel like it. Because feeling will follow form. You must form the identity, and the emotion will rise to support it. Carnegie used to say, "A man's habits are simply his beliefs in motion." And what are habits but repeated actions born from a chosen identity? The man who sees himself as a king does not move like a servant. The man who has decided to lead does not wait for consensus. The man who knows he is meant to win does not flirt with doubt. He moves, and with every step his identity deepens until he becomes a force. So I ask you now, what have you been waiting to decide? What version of yourself have you postponed? What identity are you pretending is not yours to claim? Let that end here. Today you decide. You write the new name. You declare the new frame. You burn the bridges to the old self and never look back. Let this be the line. From this moment forward, you do not doubt, you decide, and the world, it adjusts. There is a moment in every man's journey where the greatest progress comes not from a new step forward, but from cutting off the way back. You see, movement without commitment is not progress. It is dabbling. It is dipping a toe into destiny while keeping one foot anchored in doubt. But no empire was ever built by a man who kept a backup plan for mediocrity. No legacy was written by the one who kept the exit door open just in case it got hard. The men I studied, Carnegie, Edison, Ford, Lincoln, they all understood a simple, sobering truth. If you leave the bridge standing, fear will always tempt you to cross it. The phrase "burn the boats" has become cliché, but it was not cliché for those who lived it. Let me take you to a true story. Hernán Cortés, the Spanish conquistador, landed on the shores of Mexico in 1519 with a handful of men to face an empire that vastly outnumbered him. And what did he do upon arrival? He burned the ships that brought them there, not because he was reckless, but because he understood human nature. When the mind believes there's a way out, it never fully commits to the way forward. And though I do not romanticize conquest, the principle remains timeless. You must destroy the exit if you want to force destiny to open the door ahead. This principle is not only true in war, it is true in your daily life. Henry Ford did not say, "We'll try this automobile idea, and if it doesn't work, we'll go back to making carriages." Number. He staked everything. When he committed to the Model T, he shut down production of every other car his company was making, against the advice of his board, against the fear of his peers. He simplified, he streamlined, he focused, and in doing so, he created a revolution in manufacturing. Why? Because there was no retreat. Ford didn't seek comfort, he sought completion. Thomas Edison, too, had no plan B. When he set out to create a functioning light bulb, he faced more than 10,000 failures. But each attempt was made with the resolve of a man who had already sealed his fate. He once said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That is not the voice of a man who left the door open to quit. That is the voice of a man who locked it, threw away the key, and set fire to the room behind him. Andrew Carnegie, as a young immigrant with nothing but a job in a telegraph office and a mind full of ambition, decided early that poverty would not have the final word. He did not pursue wealth as a wish. He pursued it as a necessity, not for greed, but for impact. He devoted himself to mastery of industry, management, communication. When he committed to steal, he committed with everything. He was not dabbling, and because of that, he rose. What is your retreat? Be honest. Is it the job you keep as a safety net even though it dulls your soul? Is it the voice you silence because you fear what others will say? Is it the plan you never start because you keep telling yourself you'll do it when the timing is better? These are not strategies. These are shelters for fear. And as long as they exist, you will never walk with full power. You cannot act like you were meant to win if your energy is split between building and retreating. You must commit fully. And you must prove that commitment by eliminating the exits. It's easy to say, "I'm all in." It's another thing to remove every other option. That's what the greats did. Abraham Lincoln did not entertain compromise when it came to preserving the Union. He knew the risks. He knew the cost. He knew that war would scar the nation. But he also knew that preserving the soul of America required conviction without loopholes. And so, with ink and blood, he wrote his stand into history. You must now do the same metaphorically and mentally. Burn the retreat. Let fear scream. Let doubt panic. Let the old self cry out in protest, but do not go back. Delete the maybe. Delete the someday. Delete the "if this doesn't work, I'll..." Those phrases are permission slips for failure. If you were meant to win, and I believe you were, then act like it by removing every option except victory. Even when it's slow, even when it's lonely, even when no one claps, especially then. Because once you make the decision and seal it with action, something shifts. Your mind stops negotiating, your energy stops scattering, your spirit sharpens, and the world starts to bend. Say it aloud. There is no retreat. I have made my decision, and the door behind me is gone. I move with finality. I act without escape. These words must not be spoken once. They must be repeated daily until your body forgets what it felt like to doubt. This is not about drama. It's about discipline. Burning the bridge is not loud. It's not showy. It's the quiet decision you make before dawn that today again you will not run. And if you hold that line long enough, something incredible happens. Fear stops talking because it knows you're not listening anymore. There is a voice in every man's mind that determines the quality of his life long before the world ever lays a finger on him. It is the voice that speaks when no one else is around. The one that whispers when the door closes, when the lights are off, when the results don't come, and when the crowd has gone quiet. That voice is not always kind, not always supportive, not always true, but it is always present. And if you do not train it, it will train you. It is a process called autosuggestion. The deliberate and repeated feeding of the subconscious mind with instructions so clear, so consistent, so emotionally charged that they become identity. The subconscious mind does not reason. It accepts whatever is repeated to it with emotion. And herein lies your greatest threat or your greatest weapon. Let me show you what this means through real lives. When Henry Ford famously said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right," he wasn't trying to be clever. He was revealing how he built his empire. Ford didn't have the most knowledge. He didn't hold the most degrees. He didn't master every detail of his business. But he trained his inner voice to say one thing over and over: "It will be done." And because he repeated that, his subconscious went to work making it reality. But here's the mistake most men make. They speak carelessly to themselves. They allow doubt, hesitation, worry, and worst of all, sarcasm, to run on repeat. And they wonder why their progress always stalls. The subconscious mind doesn't understand humor when you joke about being lazy or failing or being stuck. It hears those thoughts as instructions. It installs them. It obeys them. And soon you do too. Thomas Edison, after thousands of failed attempts to create a working light bulb, was asked by a reporter how he kept going. He replied, "I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." But understand what that really was. It wasn't just optimism. It was programming. It was a mental script so strong, so repetitive, that failure could not take root. Every time he spoke those words, he trained his inner voice to keep moving forward, and the voice obeyed. Andrew Carnegie, too, was relentless in this discipline. He instructed the young men under his mentorship to write their chief aim and read it aloud every morning and every night. He believed that a man could become unstoppable if he simply repeated the right idea often enough, not whispered, not read silently, spoken. Why? Because the voice you speak becomes the voice you hear, and the voice you hear becomes the voice you believe, and what you believe shapes your world. So let me ask you, what have you been telling yourself? When no one's watching and results aren't showing, what do you say? "I'm tired. This probably won't work. Maybe I'm not the type. I'm just trying." These are not harmless phrases. They are weapons turned inward. And the more you repeat them, the deeper they sink. But the good news is this: you can change the script. It begins with discipline. Each morning, before the world gives you its version of reality, you must give yourself yours. You must look yourself in the mirror and declare, "I act before fear has a voice. I do not drift. I do not delay. I am the kind of man who keeps his word, even when no one is watching." And again, at night, just before sleep, when the mind is soft, when the subconscious is open, you speak your aim, you speak your identity, you speak your next move. Why? Because the mind remembers what it hears last. This is not motivational fluff. This is neurological reality. It is how the brain wires thought into habit, how the habit becomes instinct, and how instinct becomes destiny. Even Charles M. Schwab, in the height of his industrial leadership, was known for his unmatched optimism. But it wasn't blind. He had trained his focus. He avoided negative language. He redirected failure. When others panicked, Schwab reframed. That mental strength didn't come from birth. It came from repetition. You must now create your own script, a handful of phrases, spoken with intensity, repeated with conviction, not generic affirmations you found in a book, your words, your beliefs, written with fire. Let me help you begin. I do not explain my power, I execute it. My actions train my mind to believe. I am not waiting for motivation, I move with discipline. Write them, speak them, repeat them daily. And here's what will happen. The inner voice that once wavered will harden. It will sharpen. It will begin to speak with clarity, even when things feel uncertain. And when that happens, everything changes. You will no longer talk yourself out of action. You will talk yourself into motion. You will no longer entertain excuses. You will interrupt them with new instruction. You will no longer doubt your identity. You will reinforce it with every breath. This, right here, is how you kill the doubt. You don't wait for it to leave. You drown it in truth. You replace the old voice. You install a new one. And once the subconscious accepts that new voice as dominant, doubt will knock, and your mind will not even hear it. Because the inner voice is too focused, too decisive, too trained to look backward. So I challenge you, make this speech your ritual, and not just once, but again, and again, and again. Because repetition is how we become. There comes a moment in every man's life where he must choose, will I follow how I feel, or will I follow what I've decided? Most men, without knowing it, live under the rule of emotion. They act when it feels good. They pause when it feels hard. They speak when they're confident. They hide when they're uncertain. And they wonder why their life never becomes what it was meant to be. But the builders, the producers, the titans of history, they lived by a different compass. They were not governed by moods, by opinion, or by fear disguised as logic. They moved by faith. They didn't wait to feel brave. They acted before courage arrived. They trusted what they decided more than what they felt. Let me explain this clearly. Faith is not some mystical energy floating in the ether. Faith is a mental attitude, a muscle, a discipline. It is built like a wall, brick by brick, through repetition, decision, and the refusal to waver. And most importantly, faith is a choice. You do not need a reason to believe. You choose to believe, and the reason will follow.